This story was told by Hagoan Rabbi Yosef Dave Halevi Soloveitchik. Rabbi Soloveitchik knew the Rebbe in Berlin. And he told the story, it was on Purim. And he was ready to do a brisket ad leyade. It says in the Megillah you have to say L'chaim until you do not know the difference between blessed is Mordechai, cursed is Haman, Baruch Mordechai Orol Haman. And the brisk way of not knowing the difference is when one goes to sleep. While he's asleep, he does not know the difference. So this was already late in the evening, and he was preparing to do the brisket ad leyade and to retire for the evening. And the telephone rings. It's the police chief on the other line. And he says to him, do you know an individual by the name of Schneerson? And he says, yes, he's a friend of mine. And at first, he was thinking that the Rebbe is giving testimony for someone else who is in custody. But the police chief said to him, no, this is not the case. This individual, Schneerson, is arrested. He is in custody. And Rav Soloveitchik said, I'll be there in a moment. When he came, he saw the Rebbe there. What happened was, it was the Rebbe participated, of course, in his house. He had a Sudas Purim. Uchtev lev hamelech bayoyin. After the Suda of Purim, the Rebbe went out on the street. And he gathered a group. And he told them that they should copy a page out of the book of Mordechai. And what does it say in the Megillah about Mordechai? He didn't bow, and he didn't bow to pressure, and he conducted himself the right way. Now, this is Germany. And it's just a few short years before the Nazis took over, and they were already in the middle of taking over the government. And the Rebbe is speaking to them in German, and he's telling them that a Jew is not governed by what the government says. A Jew is governed by what God says. And he has the right to do that. He has the right to conduct himself as a Jew, as Mordechai did in Shushan Abilo. And then a policeman comes over to the Rebbe. And first he came over to the people, and he asked the people if there's a permit. And then he came over to the Rebbe. Haben Sie ein Erlaubnis? Do you have a permit? And then he arrested the Rebbe. Rabbi Soloveitchik said that he knows this individual, how great he is, how pious he is. And the police chief released him. As a Hakoras Atev, as a thankfulness to Rav Soloveitchik, the Rebbe did not go back home. The Rebbe went to Rav Soloveitchik's apartment. First thing the Rebbe did when he came into Rav Soloveitchik's apartment, he asked for the telephone. He called the Rebbetzin to tell the Rebbetzin that everything is fine. And then he remained with Rav Soloveitchik in his apartment. Und sie haben gerät in lernen a ganze Nacht. And they spoke in learning an entire night. This is the story as Rav Soloveitchik related it. But it gets better. There was a Jew who lived in Crown Heights who was an eyewitness to the story when they arrested the Rebbe. This Jew was not a Lubavitcher. He lived in Crown Heights at 723 Eastern Parkway. I remember him. And he had 3 sons. And he would send the 3 sons to the Lubavitcher Yeshiva on Bedford and Dean. One was older than me, 2 years, I believe. One that was in my class, and one was younger. And this individual was on the street when they arrested the Rebbe. And what he saw before, he saw the policeman talking to the people, and they were all pointing a finger at the Rebbe. Then he saw the policeman walking over to the Rebbe, and he saw the Rebbe went like this, at Noah's beetle, like this. And then he saw that the policeman arrested the Rebbe. The year was 1930 or 1931 in Berlin, not in Paris, in Berlin. And the story gets better. In 1954, Tovshin Yudalet, Purim Tovshin Yudalet, 1954, Although they did not yet live in Crown Heights, they lived in Williamsburg at the time. However, he came to the Farbrengen of the Rebbe, Purim Tovshin Yud Dalet, 1954. At the end of the Farbrengen, or towards the end of the Farbrengen, he came over to the Rebbe, and all he said to the Rebbe is that he remembers Purim in Berlin. That's all he said. The Rebbe gave him a broad smile, and the Rebbe said, "Soll es bleiben zwischen uns. Let this remain between us. Me wird noch machen an neuem Yom Tov in Lubavitch. They will make a new Yom Tov in Lubavitch." Now, Rabbi say, if this is Berlin, and it's 1930 or 31, the Tzedek Yehudim in 1933 was already the Chancellor of Germany. And therefore, it's logical to think that the police chief could have been a member of the Nazi party, or the Nazi party was already strong in Berlin. And if he released the Rebbe and didn't detain him till the morning to conduct an investigation, whatever, and he released the Rebbe immediately, that is indeed a great reason to celebrate. And as the Rebbe says, "Mevet noch machen an neuem Yom Tov," they will make a new Yom Tov, which means there is reason for a new Yom Tov in Lubavitch. As mentioned, I heard the story. This Jew davened in 770 every Mitzvah Shabbos, which means he davened in another shtibel, but Mitzvah Shabbos he davened in 770 because the Ma'ariv in 770 was a little earlier. And as mentioned before, he was not a Lubavitcher, but he had 3 sons whom he sent to the Lubavitcher Yeshiva in Bedford and Dean.